There are so many horrible therapists out there. Some of these people are just energy vampires, and they're attracted to this line of work so that they can just suck your soul right out of your body. So here are some things that bad therapists may do. The first thing is that they may be very handsy. They may touch you without your permission, hug you, rub you. They may tell you they use touch therapy, etc., etc. I personally do not want to be touched in therapy. It seems to me like it would be a violation of a boundary. Another thing they do is they may talk about themselves excessively, and this may seem like a very obvious sign to look out for, but they do this very sneakily. So what they'll do is they will go on and on about themselves, and this is a waste of a session, in my opinion, for them to go on and on about their expertise, especially for like an hour, and just to go on and blab about themselves. You can certainly read about the therapist on their website. If you're there and you're paying them, in my opinion, they're supposed to be giving you advice. They're not supposed to be talking about themselves. They also may overbill you or talk excessively about the cost of the session. So they may add additional fees, especially onto your first visit. And I've seen this as necessary that you pay upfront costs to a doctor before they'll see you. But what you can do is call your insurance company and make sure that the doctor is allowed to do that. And also, a lot of these doctors don't file insurance. So, I mean, that's like a red flag in itself. If you're certified to be a practitioner, then you should be able to get credentialed to accept insurances. They'll talk about how they're like not billing you as much as they could, and they're doing you a favor, and I'll charge today, I'll charge this much, next time I'll charge this much. It shouldn't be that way, because it sort of makes you feel guilty. Like, either way, if you're not paying enough or you're paying too much, honestly, they should only charge you what they're allowed to charge you by insurance. There shouldn't be surprise fees. If you pay for medical insurance, your medical insurance is going to most likely have mental health benefits, and just there should never be fees or extra bills or extra costs. And this sort of leads into the next thing is the counselor may try to get you to buy extra programs or classes or sessions or books or tapes or something. I've seen programs that were thousands of dollars, and when you go to the session, the therapist, if the therapist is trying to pressure you to sign up for something in addition to the therapy, that's a major red flag, because that's just a freaking scam. I mean, if you're going to someone, you're going to them for therapy. You're not going to them for a class. Another thing a bad therapist may do is they may completely ignore concerns that you have. If you bring up a concern that you have been experiencing something very out of the ordinary, I mean, like, you may be hallucinating, you may be experiencing paranoia, you may be experiencing OCD behaviors. A lot of these things can be stress induced. A lot of these things can be lack of sleep induced. And if you bring up something that you're genuinely concerned about, and the therapist says, "Oh, that doesn't make sense," and just glosses over it, that person is likely not trained to root out the cause of that problem. And that's very invalidating. This is a very important one. If the therapist is not credentialed, that is a big red flag. Apparently, anyone can advertise themselves to be a counselor. I have heard that you can find licensed therapists via Psychology Today website or other websites like that. I personally don't really know That's something that I need to find out, how to find a good licensed and credentialed therapist. But in my experience, there are people out there who are advertising themselves as being counselors and they're not credentialed. Another red flag would be if they tell you things that you're interested in, as long as it's not anything like illegal. We all know good from bad, right from wrong. If they tell you things that you're interested in is not a good idea, or they dismiss your ideas of how you have a plan for your life, they tell you, oh, don't go to school for that, don't plan on doing that, don't do this, don't do that, you should do this. If they insert their own opinions into your session, that to me is a major red flag. And here's why. If we grow up with narcissistic abusers, we've likely heard this our whole lives, that we can't do this or that, or we've been made to feel like we can't make adult decisions. And in reality, we can do anything we want to do, right? And a good therapist is supposed to walk you through that potential decision, right? And there is comfort in knowing that you do have decisions. It's very suffocating to feel like you don't have options or decisions in your career, in your parenthood, in your social circle, in your job, etc., in your home, in your relationship, whatever. If you have an idea in your head that like you want to start going to church or whatever, your therapist should never be like, oh, that's not a good idea. Your therapist should walk you through the decision, whatever decision that you're thinking of, and should get you to look at how your life would be affected, how your feelings would be. You would be happy, not what things may be problems, what things may be resolved, etc. A therapist should never insert a personal opinion onto a client. Okay, here's the final red flag for me is a therapist should never tell you that you and your significant other are not soulmates or that you're not a good fit. Big surprise here, guys. There's no such thing as a soulmate or a perfect person. We are all individual people. We're born by ourselves. We have to live life by ourselves. We have to go to work by ourselves. We have to go to school by ourselves. We have to make our own decisions in life. We die by ourselves. And we can choose a partner who we enjoy being around, but people are ultimately going to be driven by their own personal desires. And if you're in a happy, healthy relationship, you're going to consider the other person. You're going to sometimes make mistakes. You're going to sometimes put yourself first. You're going to sometimes get frustrated. And this is just normal to be expected. This doesn't mean that you're not in a good relationship. So if a therapist, anything they say to prolong your suffering or to cause you suffering, for example, trying to plant seeds of doubt in your relationship when you're perfectly happy in your relationship and you're in therapy to strengthen your relationship, not to necessarily fix anything. If they're trying to plant seeds of doubt, or if they're telling you that, that you just shouldn't be with the other person, kind of out of nowhere for no reason, that's a major red flag for me, because think it through every decision that someone, like if someone gives you advice, think how it's going to affect your life. If you tell someone to leave a perfectly good partner, that's only going to cause that person suffering and grief, and it doesn't necessarily make sense for that person's life. On the flip side of that, they may encourage you to stay with a very toxic partner in a very toxic relationship. If you're seeking therapy because your partner has abused you or has cheated on you, and these are things I've personally seen, guys. It just amazes me that a perfectly happy couple could be told to leave each other, and a toxic couple could be told that they should try to stay together. And if you want to stay with someone and you're making progress in your relationship, if you can forgive the person, that's fine, but there are situations where you should leave a toxic person, and to encourage someone to stay in a toxic relationship, exactly like the other example, that's just going to prolong that person's suffering and cause them grief, whereas they could leave the relationship and be much happier with someone else. I believe we do have a culture of gaslighting nowadays where people will tell you not to do things that you want to do or that may make you happy. They'll tell you that you shouldn't do it or that you should put it off. And sometimes if we listen to people and we don't do what we want to do, it's honestly just wasted life, wasted years of our lives. And that's why you should think about how a decision is going to affect your life. You shouldn't just automatically take someone else's advice. Even if the person is older, you shouldn't just take what that person is saying. You should think about it. Like if you want to go to school and you don't go to school because someone advises you not to go to school, think about how your life is going to look if you don't go to school. Think about how your life is going to look if you do go to school. I just feel like society has gotten more and more toxic, and people, it's just a culture of gaslighting now where the truth of the matter is absolutely being denied. People are not being encouraged to have children or get married nowadays, or, you know, there's like a culture where it's like cool to do this or that, but before you know it, your life can pass you by and you can have missed opportunities. And because you've listened to someone else now, you can't take back those years of your life. And just like if someone tells you to leave your significant other and you do it, you may never find a person like that again. And you shouldn't throw away a relationship over a small like a small personality conflict or whatever. There's no easy relationship. It seems like it's almost like people are encouraging us to chase perfection, and that's like sort of a way that they bully us to make bad decisions in our lives. There's no such thing as perfection. It's normal to fight in your relationship. It's normal to have doubts. It's normal to be jealous. It's absolutely normal to experience very normal human emotions. And the way that you can know if you're making the right decisions for yourself is if you're genuinely happy and you feel happy every day. You feel happy to be in the situation that you're in. And how you can know you should do something is if you want to do it. Like if it keeps like replaying over and over in your mind, if it's something you've always wanted to do your whole life, if there's something you're absolutely sure about, do it. Don't let anybody tell you should be a certain way. You should have kids, you shouldn't have kids, you should get married, you shouldn't get married. Don't let anybody dictate your life to you. Don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't do something that you know is going to make you happy. And if you're happy, then who cares? The other person should be happy for you. And if they're not, they're probably a toxic person.